This is the Debbie Perkins Radio Show. And here's your host, Debbie Perkins.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Hollywood Red Carpet Radio Show. I'm Debbie Perkins, and I'm your host, and I have an amazing guest this evening. His name is Scott Page. You'd know him as an American musician technologist. He's an entrepreneur, and he's known for his saxophone and rhythm guitar work in multiple bands such as Pink Floyd, Toto, Supertramp, and we can go on and on. He also has a couple of wonderful companies. One of them is Think Experience, EXP, out of Los Angeles. Scott also has a radio show and more works in the projects, but he also has a very awesome beginning, and I'd like to welcome him now. Thank you. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Oh, thank you so much, Debbie. We've been trying to do this forever, right? And finally we get to do this.
I know. It's so funny. But you know
so
what?
I'm so happy to be here.
Wonderful. I am wicked happy that you're on. This is like, you're like one of the you're like a legend. You're like people only dream to talk to somebody like you. So I feel extra blessed.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
Now,
go ahead.
Did I ask you questions about your childhood and how you grew up and how you found yourself becoming part of such an amazing explosion of revolution?
Wow. It's actually, it's my father who really, he was a serial entrepreneur, a great musician. And I grew up on a television show that he was on called The Lawrence Welk Show, which was some people might remember, some of the younger folks might not remember, but it was one of the very first early variety shows on television back in the day. Those were the days when we had 7 channels, not this crazy amount of channels we have now with cable and everything. And so it was a show that was on every week on, I think it was either Sunday or Saturday or Sunday night. I can't remember. But anyway, I grew up on that. My dad was a great musician. He was a studio musician. He did Lawrence Welk for 14 years, and then he went off and was NBC staff and worked at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, all the music shows out there, light opera season. But he was totally an entrepreneur. So when I grew up, we had boat businesses, candy businesses, lighting businesses. We had 26 donut shops at one time. And my father was also one of the guys, along with Brad Plunkett, that invented the wah-wah pedal, which is the famous musical pedal. And he then started, at the time, he had started the first amplified instruments. He started and created the first amplified orchestra, which was the Bill Page Ampliphonic Orchestra, where he actually took a hearing aid and flipped it around and put it on his clarinet and ran it through an amp and said, wow, we can amplify these wind instruments. And so he went to the Thomas Organ Company, who also owned Vox, the guitar amplifier company, and sold them on the idea of amplified instruments. And they thought, oh, wow, this is really cool. We can make saxophones and clarinets and flutes like guitars. So he started building that. And that's when we went over one day. He came home and he said, hey, you want to go look at this building? We're going to find a place to go build the amplified orchestra. I said, okay, Dad. So I went after dinner. We drove over there, and which was this 4 walls in this building. And we said, wow, this will be a great place to build, the studio to build this amplified orchestra thing. And later to know that became the Vox Sound Lab, which then became the Sound City, the very famous recording studio with, just amazing albums that came out of that. And actually, we were just talking, Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters actually bought the recording console out of that studio and then did a whole documentary about Sound City and the albums and everything that came out of it. So I grew up in a musical family. My father's full-blown serial entrepreneur, and it's kind of how my life's been, besides playing music all these years. I've been in the business side of it. I've launched 4 companies. I was lucky enough to take one of them public. Sort of one of my big claim to fame is that I'm so mostly proud of more than anything almost, that I actually got early on in the whole interactive multimedia space, and I directed and produced, along with a friend of mine, co-projected and produced, along with a gentleman by the name of Richard Merrick. We did the world's first interactive cartoon, which was called Toonland, and it starred Howie Mandel, and that really got me into the tech space. And so I've been a sort of a tech entrepreneur and a musician and kind of bridging the gap between those. And I'm on my fourth startup right now, Think EXP, and we're just launching Think NFT in the whole NFT space. And that's where I'm really excited right now, because that's virtually changing the landscape for artists and musicians like nothing we've ever seen before. So, yep, full-blown entrepreneur, crazy guy, still playing music like crazy and having more fun than any human being, and I'm alive to talk about it.
It's so funny. Somebody asked me, do you think Scott Page still plays? I said, I don't think he'll ever stop.
No. I mean, when I play, playing to me is, well, first, consciousness is my favorite subject on the planet, right? And that's something that matters to me more than anything. I mean, that really is the only thing that truly matters. You know, you blink, you're 50, you blink, you're on your deathbed. It goes that fast. And so, you know, aligning with kind of the source, so to speak, is probably for me the most important thing that I've ever, you know, encountered and gone after and love it to death. So, you know, the whole idea of that, now I forgot why I was going to say that. That was going to lead into my reason that I was going to say that. I did one of those. Oops.
You'll remember later.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's just been a great ride.
No, you also do professor work where you help at the University of Southern California, Thornton School of Music.
Well, I did. I actually was doing some lectures out there. I teach a thing called SPACE, and SPACE stands for Story, Plan, Army, Conversion, Education. And it's basically a business framework. I love startup. I love the concept of startups. I love to help startups. I consult startups. I love young entrepreneurs. I love to help them because I just love the concept of making stuff. And so I did some lectures out there, and then they asked me to teach one semester. So I went out there and I taught it for a semester, and you know, it was a lot of fun. It's very interesting. The kids today, it's a little different. They're not quite as curious as they used to be. That's for sure.
Yeah. Now, do you think it's because the way music is being changed now? You think that's the new wave?
Well, you know, I think, you know, what's happened is, you know, when we were playing and making records most of the time is, you know, you were restrained by, you know, 8 tracks or 16 or 24 tracks. And then later on, we could almost get maybe 48 when you'd lock 2 machines up together. And now we have just unlimited, right? You can just keep doing as many takes as you want. You got unlimited everything, and you can fix everything. If something's out of tune, you can apply some tech to it and it'll tune it up. If you want to, you know, it's almost, we've become victims of overchoice in a sense. So the old days we made music was where you had to commit. You know, sometimes you'd be in there and say, geez, I only got one more track left. What can you do? And you'd get a shot and you'd put it on, and, you know, you'd have to really conjure it up and hopefully get that moment captured on tape. Now they take everything, and I'll go in and do a session and stuff, and I'll do like 3 takes top to bottom. They'll say, that's good, that's fine. And I said, well, did we really get anything there? So yeah, no worry. Then they cut it all up and they turn it into something else. Right. So there's definitely a new way that they make music. And, you know, I think some of it is pretty soulless in the sense, I mean, maybe the grooves feel good because they're all machined up, but there's that loss of what I'd call that personal aspect that would happen, those little mistakes that would happen when, you know, we'd be in the studio and, you know, 5 of us, the rhythm section, all of us, we go play live and cut a track. You know, you do 4 or 5 tracks and everybody kind of conjure up the spirit and go lay it down, because now, you know, they can fix everything. It almost doesn't matter. So I think it definitely has changed in a sense, but I do have to say also technology has allowed us to see some of the most amazing young talent because of like YouTube and stuff. All these kids, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old kids that are like virtuosos, which is really fascinating to see, which makes me think a little bit more about reincarnation, because there's really, how could you learn that at 6 years old, right? It's just amazing. So I think tech has been very valuable, but at the same time, I think it has also changed the way we experience music. And now there's just so much of it, right? I mean, everybody can make music and it's everywhere. It's really, you know, it's kind of hard to find that the real soulful stuff in the sense. I mean, it's not hard. Maybe that's a bad word to use because there's always great music, but there's no question it's gotten to the point where there's a lot of it is pretty, what I would say, soulless. It kind of feels good, but it doesn't really have the same thing that when you got five guys in a room and the little mistakes that people make become such a big part of the personality of the record.
I agree with that. And still right now, still to this day, if we hear a song, you can hear all the parts of the band. You can hear the guitar separate from the sax. You can hear you can hear the acoustics. You can hear the drummer. You can hear all these parts separately in your head when you're listening to it.
Yeah.
But now everything's meshed. It's, you can't tell the difference between, an electric guitar, or an organ.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or the computer making, sounds that, of course it's wonderful that they can do that. But then again, I feel like I'm being robbed of real rock and roll.
Well, we're seeing that a lot across everything. Just face it, AI is taking over everything, right? It's like, the whole idea of artificial intelligence is now becoming more and more like mainstream in everything we do now, right? It's basically taking over, running businesses. Your checkout stands are now, you just walk up to them, you talk to them, and they do stuff. And same with music. You can just hit buttons and music just starts to flow out. And what about the filters you're seeing and the stuff that takes pictures and turns it into things that used to take people time to like figure out? So the AI is all doing it. And it feels to me like it's like, okay, this used to be like a cool piece of art that somebody did. Now I don't know if it was done by a human or by a machine, right?
Sure.
And so I think we're going into a state. I mean, I have a real feeling that I think humans are basically designing themselves out in a sense where the AI and the machines are going to be pretty much taking over everything. I mean, now you've got these algorithms that can write music and genres. And, there was one I was looking at, there's like a site too. You need a music score. You can say, oh, make it like John Williams. Give me a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And the next thing you hit a button and it pumps out a complete orchestra score for you. Now, it's maybe not exactly the same, but for a lot of the music business, like especially people that are doing sync license, writing music stuff for, commercials or, cable and all those types of things, this AI is going to basically make it a little tough for a lot of those people.
But you, Scott, grew up humble. You actually did scoring.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody would understand that what you did when it comes to scoring for a big band. That's hard. That's, well, yeah. I mean, I watched an interview where you said that you had to be right. And sometimes you were doing it, you might have missed something.
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about those days, because I know those were your learning days.
Oh, yeah, no question. Well, in those days, when I studied to be an architect, and I think this is the story you're talking about, I studied to be an architect, so I was becoming a draftsman. So I was pretty good with my pencil and my triangles and rulers and stuff. And I could, my job was I used to draw exploded views of parts and things like that. And then when I started getting into the music business and I decided to go full time, I wasn't good enough. This was in college. I wasn't really good enough to really go out and get work as a musician. Maybe get to play some clubs a little bit there, but not to survive on. So I ended up taking my my drafting skills and became a music copyist. And so in those days when we would do sessions, I would work for a guy like one of the composers I worked for a lot was a guy named P.T. Barnum. Not P.T. Not P.T. H.B. Barnum. I'm sorry, H.B. Barnum. And he was a, great composer, arranger, and he would arrange all the records for Motown and, all the different studios and things and write all the string parts, the orchestra parts, the trumpet parts. And he would call me up in the middle of the night and say, hey, I need you to copy a score. I'd drive over his place. I'd grab it. I'd come home, get the coffee going. And he would hand me a score. So it was all handwritten score of stuff on a score sheet where you got the first trumpet, second trumpet, third trumpet, the saxophones, the tenor, all the drums, all that. And I'd have to copy each line off of that for each part so you could pass it out to the guys at the session. So I'd stay up all night and I'd be copying the first trumpet part, the second trumpet part, the tenor part, the guitar part, all those things. And I'd get it done, and I'd then drive over to the studio to make it by 10 a.m. for when the session started. And there was nothing worse than when you made a mistake, right? You put an F instead of a G, or you forgot the flat, or whatever. And if you have a bunch of those, that's not a good thing, because these guys were on time, to get X amount of music cut in so much time. And if they're sitting there having to fix the score or fix the part time, that's not a good thing. So, those were the days of totally different thing. We didn't have now the computers write out all the music, and, it's just you can actually play something and it'll just, transcribe what you just played perfectly into the part. So there's all these new ways of composing and arranging now that is just totally different from those days. And especially, when you never know what's going to happen in the sessions when you got the musicians in the room and everybody's playing, and some magic happens. And sometimes it's just, what people don't realize is, you might do a track. And a lot of times what we do is we do 3, 4, 5 takes of a song. Like we'll do the 4 or 5 takes. And what's amazing is each take is actually so different because of the way they feel, depending on where the musicians were, where their heads were, how they were feeling. And so often when you made records, it's like, usually the magic would happen in the first 1 or 2 takes, because it was before people really started thinking hard about it, and they were just kind of playing more from the seat of their pants playing. So there was a spirit that was there. And so, it's amazing, no matter what, you play the same song 5 times, it'll sound totally different each time the band plays it when you listen back. And certain tracks will have this spirit where it'll make your shoulders back stand up, and you just feel like, wow, this is connecting. And then the same track, the next one will be like, it's kind of dead. It didn't happen because, everybody's head was in a different place, right? They weren't, this is where the musicians had such a impact on how they felt that day and what they were feeling, and kind of what they played really made to the magic of what the music was all about. And that's why certain records still to this day stand the test of time, because it had captured a moment, a spirit that is just it's undeniable. And I think that's a big part of what we kind of I miss today. I mean, I listen to some of this stuff, and I like it. I think it's great, and some of it's very inventive. And there's some incredible, artists, producers, loop makers and stuff that are making some really cool things. But it's still, with the machine kind of running everything and less of that human touch, for me, it leaves a little bit at times, not all things, don't get me wrong, but some of the stuff is just, it's kind of doesn't move me in the same way. It may make me move to dance, but it doesn't move me from a soul point of view, like listening to each player in the band playing the part. Like you said, you don't know if it's a synthesizer or a guitar today.
Yes.
Right? It's like, okay.
I agree with that because the concerts we grew up with, those raised the roof. Those made you, you danced in your seat, but you also were engaged.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially if you think about this, you remember we didn't have YouTube, you didn't have all this social media, you didn't have, hundreds of channels of stuff and, all that. We were just, when we would go to concerts, that was a huge event.
Oh, man.
Right? 'Cause all we listened to was records. We'd listen to the records and then maybe you'd see them on TV or here and there, but you didn't really get to hang out. And when you went to go see, the Stones or Zepp or Floyd or something, that was like a big deal because that experience in the room, right?
The party afterwards. That's how awesome that was.
To
be honest, the best concerts in the world. And you got to be involved with some of the greats, and it's like, and I can see how you evolved. It was a long process for you though, Scott. But you got to be involved in some very big bands, that they left the world with a fingerprint forever, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I truly feel I'm the most grateful, blessed, thankful person you will ever meet. I have had such a beautiful ride and lucky to have been, brought into these things. It's funny how Lawrence Welk was the first show I was on when I was a kid, and I'm the only guy on the planet that played in Lawrence Welk and Pink Floyd, which is kind of a funny.
That's hilarious.
It's like a funny thing to think about, right? So that's one of my major claim to fame. But yeah, getting to play with these musicians, guys that I had listened to, and then get to travel with them, get to know them, like John Helliwell and Supertramp, who became one of my great mentors. It's not so much, obviously learned a lot, some from him on the music side, but really more about life. He was one of the most, he still is one of the most unique, beautiful humans I've ever met. And his just approach to being awake enough to take a bite of food and his eyes closed and he tastes the food, right? He's not thinking about anything else, and he loves fine things. And you see that he interacts with things in a way that he's very present, very connected. And he gave me some insights about life. So that was great with him. And then Dave Gilmour from Floyd, who's, one of the great guitar players. I learned so much from him about playing. He completely changed my style of playing, because I started to realize it's not what you play, it's what you say, right? And so Dave is not he's not a real flashy player when it comes to like, he doesn't do all that gymnastics and stuff. He plays melodies and things that people can, can follow. And I realized that was the most important thing, because I'd watch Dave. He'd get up and he'd play a solo, and you could see everybody sitting on their edge of the seats. And he would kill him when he didn't play, with the spaces that he would leave. So the space in the music was as important as the actual notes. And so I started realizing all that. And I completely changed my whole style of playing to playing more, what I would say, more melodic and more musical, in the sense of trying to play melodies that people can follow along with. It's almost like writing little songs. Because if you think about, like, Comfortably Numb, the great classic Pink Floyd song, if you listen to that song without Dave Gilmour's solo in the middle of that record, it feels like you left out a verse, or you left out the vocals, or you left out the words. It's just because it's so melodically beautiful, and you can feel every note of it, and people feel it and sing along with it, right? So he had the power to kind of translate what he does to what I would say the common man that may not know a lot about music, but they can feel and hear and follow along with what he did. So, all these bands and people I played with have really just been amazing learning experiences, from some of these people that are my gurus, my masters, basically, these really incredible people that did amazing things, again, like Toto. I go back to Toto. I got to play, with Jeff Porcaro. And Jeff Porcaro was one of the greatest drummers of all time. It's very sad he passed when he was 35. But at that time, he was already on thousands and thousands of records and was considered one of the great drummers. And, people always ask me, what was the best thing of playing with Toto? I said, well, I got to play cowbell with Jeff Porcaro on 4 songs. And because Jeff's time and his feel was so extraordinary, that it was that was the highlight, was just taking a cowbell and beating, looking and staring in his eyes and sinking the stick into the cowbell, right, just locked in at a level that was just like, it was almost better. It was like better than sax almost. It was because when you tune into somebody, when you're a group of musicians and a musician and another guy, you kind of lock. There's like this, I don't know how to explain it. There's just like this thing that goes between you two where you feel the same thing at the same time. And it's the best thing in the world. And it's really, connecting with the source, or, consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. And that's why I love to play. So when I play my saxophone, I always equate that as it's my opportunity when I play to get closer to God, or the source, or nature, whatever anybody wants to label that as, because it's just, you go to a state of no mind. You stop thinking, and all of a sudden you just start being. Right? It's like, it's a totally different space. And music is what, for me, brings me to that space. And, for years, I was always wondering, I used to tape myself all the time coming home from my club gigs when I was growing up. And I'd tape myself at the gig, and then I'd put it in the car. And as I was, listening on the way home, just to, critique myself, was I rushing, dragging? What did I play in tune? What kind of licks? And then I just remembered there was like 5 or 6 times over a 10-year period of time where I threw it in the car and I played it, and I said, that's not me. I never heard any. Where did those licks come from, man? It was just like something happened. And I never could understand why those few handful of times I played the most miraculous stuff I've ever played. And I have no idea how I even played it or why it even happened. And then I realized as I got later on, as I got more into, taking that inward journey and meditating and, learning about all that, I just started to realize that what had happened at that moment is I dropped thought. I wasn't thinking anymore, and I was more kind of just following what was coming through me, right? And that's, some people call that the flow state or whatever it is, but that's what music allows you to do.
Let's take a real quick break. We'll be right back, everybody.
That's showbiz. Good night.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. And I am here with Scott Page. Before we get too far down, I would like to thank Jimmy Starr and Eileen Shapiro and Ron Russell.
I love those people. They're my faves.
Don't we love those guys?
Oh my God, they're the best.
If it weren't for them, I would never have been able to be in contact with you. And I'm blessed because of them.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I mean, Eileen is probably one of my favorite humans on this planet.
She's so
the best. She's the most giving, kindest, straight ahead. She's all of my buddies' therapists. It's really funny. Eileen is like, everybody I introduce her to, they all fall in love with her. And it's like Eileen's on the phone with all my music buddies, like all night. She's like honest to God, she's like, if you have a problem, you call Eileen and you cry on her shoulder. She's like Mom, right? And she's our therapist. So I call her the rock and roll therapist. But yeah, no, Eileen's fantastic. And Jimmy and Ron are just great people too. So yeah, I'm very, very thankful to have them as my friends. It's beautiful. And then some of the people around them, our friend B over in Germany, she's unbelievable. There's so many great folks that they surround themselves with. I feel like family with them.
Now, I want to move you a little bit to the Rock and Roll Talk Show, because you do that show with David Moss.
Yep.
Steve Perkins from Jane's Addiction.
Right, yep.
Penny Olson. Yep. Norwood Fisher, and some people would know him as Fishbone.
Yeah, from Fishbone. Yeah, Norwood from Fishbone.
Yep. And Sheila.
Yep, Sheila. Yeah, so that's kind of my band is called Think X. So our company is called Think Experience, and it's Think:EXP, and this is Think:X is the band. And then I have Think:NFT, which is my NFT business. And so, that band, so Think X is, Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction, Norwood Fisher from Fishbone, Kenny Olson from Kid Rock's band. He also was the guy that took Jimi Hendrix's place in the Hendrix band when Hendrix passed. So he's a monster guitar player. And then and Sheila Conlon is our manager, and she's actually an incredible producer. She's agent. She's really very famous in the reality television space. And she actually has if you want to go see anybody out there, if you want to go see a great show, if you haven't seen it on Hulu, it was just released about a month or so ago. It's called The Curse of Von Dutch. And that's the famous clothing line. It's a 3-part episode. And I'll tell you, it's like Tiger King meets a clothing business. It's the most amazing story. But that's Sheila's. She was the one that developed that story, followed through, produced it, directed it, and it just came out. And it's, one of the top. It's been winning the award kind of thing, winning awards, and it's just fantastic. So I'm so proud of her and what she did. Yeah, it's really good. So
she is. Yeah. And she's very pretty. Considering all you guys on that panel, because we can see you. For anybody who's listening, Scott's show is a visual show. And not only have you guys do a lot of conversing with other musical celebrities, you also have played your instruments in a band on that show.
Yeah, we do stuff. We try to have a little music sense. Either one of us will say, okay, I'll do something this week. Or we've been bringing in guests lately. We're starting to bring more guests in to basically do the playing out part at the end. But yeah, it's called the Rockin' Talk Show. And you can find us on, most of the streaming sites, C-Suite Network, obviously Facebook, YouTube, those places. But it's a lot of fun. And this week we actually have Farside, this is the first interview with those guys in 30 years. And they're coming back now. And so we're pretty excited about that because they were kind of early pioneers in this whole space that, the Black Eyed Peas would not even been around if it wasn't for Far Side, right? So they were very influential. So I'm really
That's
looking forward
tomorrow
to that.
night, though, Scott.
I'm sorry?
February 10th. February 10th is tomorrow.
That's right. Tomorrow we do that show. So I think it's
Awesome.
5:30 to 6:30 we do every Thursdays. So yeah, definitely check it out. But that's always fun. Love talking with my brothers there. And they're, some very, very smart, witty guys. Steve Perkins is probably one of the smartest. He has such an interesting perspective on music and things. And so it's a fun show. It's a fun show.
You guys are all great.
Yeah.
So tomorrow night, everybody, please tune in. And if you are looking for it, contact me. I'll get you that link for that show.
Yeah. And just real quick, we just started a new show. I just started with Dylan Barry. We've done 4 episodes, but we're doing a whole show all around NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and how it works for the music industry and stuff like that. So that's a new podcast we got, coming out right now too. So,
and you wanted to talk some about that NFT, Scott.
Yeah.
Go ahead and let everybody know what you're thinking.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have everybody out there. It's still relatively new, but it's, blowing up like crazy. You've probably seen or heard of that Beeple painting that sold for $69 million in 12 minutes, a digital piece of art. And there's a lot of these things happening, but that's all around what they call non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. And it's built on the blockchain, which is part of the whole crypto. It's basically a crypto type of application. Blockchain application, just like Bitcoin and Ethereum, they run on the blockchain network. NFTs run on the blockchain network and use Ethereum and different other things to run the basically what NFTs are. They basically, when you take think of fungibility. Let's start from 101 real quick. So there's fungible and there's non-fungible. Fungible is something that is the same. So in other words, if I have a dollar bill and Debbie, you got one, I hand you my dollar, you give me yours. I walk away, everything's the same. It's still a dollar, still the same thing. A non-fungible token is something when you connect the blockchain to an asset that is not exchangeable. Like if I was to say my house, right? And there's only one house. I can't give you my house. You give me your house, and they're exactly the same. So non-fungibility means it's not the same, but it's still connected through code that makes it a one of a kind. So people are probably wondering, they see these things like called the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and those Bored Apes, which are just their little JPEG, just a simple PNG file of a special ape. Well, there's 10,000 of those different apes, and each one is unique. And when you buy one, you own that ape and you own the rights to it, and you can verify through the blockchain that it is the original. It is the only one of a kind. And the whole idea of NFTs is what's going to be around us for everything we do. Every hair salon, store, school, everybody's going to be using NFTs because it is basically a new way to do commerce and create value. Now, what's interesting is when you interact with an NFT, NFTs are not just an image or something, but they're programmable through what they have, what is called a smart contract, which is built into right now the Ethereum network, which is Ethereum is a blockchain that's similar to Bitcoin. It's just a different one, but it has built into it a smart contract, which allows you to put rules and stuff into that contract that when you attach it to an object, to a digital file, all those rights and rules go along with it. So whatever that NFT has from, let's say, a point of utility. So an example, if I was, let's say I had an NFT ticket for a concert, and that's going to be, I think, one of the big things that's going to happen, because that NFT ticket can now have all the rules in it. It may give you backstage pass. It may give you access to a one-on-one with the actor. It may give you the ability to get to come to all the rest of the shows. It may give you tickets to seats. It may have all kinds of what they call utility built into that programmable object. And so that ticket, that visual will have, if that's shown, then that can actually get you do a lot of things. So the idea of utility. Now, why this is important for artists and for basically anybody making content is it allows for you to have a fully direct-to-consumer business model. So what I mean by that is it goes wallet to wallet. So in the crypto world, if people don't know, you use crypto like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, all these different kinds of coins, and you run them in an application called a digital wallet. And there's multiple digital wallets, like MetaMask is a digital wallet, right? So it's one that you can put in there. It's secure, and there's a whole process. And so a non-fungible token is just like a cryptocurrency, except it has an asset attached to it. So why is this important is because now whatever gets put on the blockchain that you turn in an NFT, you can verify that that particular one that you did is the authenticated actual number one. People can make copies, but they won't be able to show that they own the original. So now we've got all kinds of digital things that can have value. And that's why when we're seeing right now, we're going through, everybody's hearing about the metaverse, right? So the metaverse is virtually a digital space where you go into in a 3D kind of world, and you can interact with your avatars, and it's kind of a new place of commerce. Well, to run the metaverse, the NFTs are exactly what it is to you, so that you can say there's a picture on the wall. That's the original picture. There's no more of those that are original. I can check transparently on the bottom. If I want to buy that asset, when I buy it, then the blockchain verifies all the transaction. And then everybody that was supposed to get paid when I bought that gets paid instantaneously. And if there's any royalties in there, then the person gets the royalties back. And that's all handled on the blockchain with no third party. So NFTs fundamentally change the way everything we work, the way we do business. And I believe, I believe NFTs represent freedom like we've never seen before. It's freedom in the way we do business. It's the freedom where we can do direct commerce with other people without banks in the middle. There's freedom to move my money. I can move it from here to Europe in a matter of minutes. I don't have to go to the bank, wait for the transaction, all that stuff, right?
Deal with customs and things of that nature.
Yeah. So NFTs are basically changing the planet. And I tell everybody out there, it's a new frontier. It's wild, wild west. There's a lot of money being made, because what's so beautiful about NFTs is I can create something and then give it to you. And then you can, if I give you the rights, you can go create with it and make your own business and do things. That's why Bored Ape Yacht Club is so powerful. People ask me, why is that? It's less than a year old, and it's a $2 billion property. And it's these little apes. It's these little tiny apes, right? These individual apes. And everybody says, well, how can that little digital one graphic be worth so much money? They start at 210,000, or 218 was the cheapest one I've seen. They started out at $200 a piece, and now they're up to $1.5 million. And the reason is, and this is how I try to explain it, is because of being able to use NFTs, and you can program and put all the information into the smart contract. I can, when you buy that ape, I actually buy the rights to that ape. So I can create derivative works with it. I can create t-shirt lines or whatever. I can have my ape. I know guys that have 4 of the Bored Ape holders have joined together to create a television show around their 4 apes. And so in a way to kind of make it even a little more clear is, if you imagine Nike, big brand, and Nike decided to do 10,000 unique swooshes, the little logo, right? And they got a red one, a blue one, a green one with diamonds, one with stars, whatever, right? Each one is unique. And I bought one of those, and it allowed me to, when I own that token, I can build my own tennis shoe line. I can build my own t-shirt line. I can build upon it. So the NFT strategy in this case is, the business model is empowering the audience to go make money off of what I've given them to go make at the same time. So it's like owning a piece of that brand. So there's no question for artists, it's really important. And here's one other little example. I go to these NFT meetups. I went to one the other day where there was a girl. She was 20 years old, and she's a up-and-coming photographer, trying to be a photographer. She used to be working at like a Starbucks while she was like trying to take pictures. She got into NFTs almost 6 to 9 months ago, she said, and now she makes her entire living off of them. So all her photographs are basically keeping her alive, because she's building a community around her art, and they support her by buying her stuff. And then when it's resold in the contract, it says she gets a 10% royalty. So every time that thing moves for forever, that she's going to get her royalty and paid on that. Now, here's what was really interesting, because in the smart contract, when she started it, she carved a little percentage off for her community center. So through all her paintings and stuff she did this last 6 months, she basically was the cut that went to her community center was 2.5 ETH, and that's equivalent to $10,000. So imagine this, a young artist that nobody knows selling her photographs, just basically was able to contribute $10,000 with the sale of her stuff to her local community. It's unheard of.
That's awesome.
Right. So this is creating all new business models, all new ways to make money, interact. And I mean, there's a lot of people making a lot of money now in this space, buying and selling and trading. And
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a really interesting time. So I suggest to everybody out there, go in, do the 30 to 40 hours deep dive into NFTs, especially if you're an artist or you're creating content, you make videos, you do podcasts, you do whatever. This is an opportunity for you to completely monetize your business like you've never had before. And it's the most exciting time I've seen in my lifetime for what this can do. I feel like I'm 30 years old again, back in a new space, just having a blast because the community is so strong.
Yes, and you talk about it with such passion. So, and I listened very carefully to all the things you were talking about, because I do believe that is our way. That's the direction we're going to be heading in. And I think it's very interesting that you can exchange so quickly. And I like that idea, because
it's
the way
great.
things
It's
are,
paid
yeah.
Everybody gets paid at the same time. So the minute it sells, everybody gets paid. The minute it sells the second time, they get paid at the same time. Everybody that's in the smart contract.
Cool. It's so cool, so smart.
Yep.
And now, are you part of this new project? Is this something that you personally work on with other people?
Yeah. So I've launched Think NFT. We actually did our first big event this week at the Mammoth Film Festival. It was the first time for any film festival had given away an NFT as along with their award. And I set up the whole gallery of other leading NFTs that are coming into the space. And so, yeah, we just came back from Mammoth on that. And then we're getting ready to go to South by Southwest, where we've got 4 days. We've taken over an incredible venue there for that conference. And it's all around NFTs, music, blockchain, crypto, art. So it's going to be a really fun show that we're going to be doing there for 4 days. And then that leads into, I'm also co-producing and working on, with the guys over at Edge of NFT, NFT LA, which is a big conference. There was NFT New LA, it was NFT New York and NFT, Miami. And now we're doing NFT LA coming up that's on March 28th through the 31st. And then, like I said, South by Southwest is March 11th through the 14th for us. So, yeah, we're space big time. This is, one of the most exciting, like I said, times of my life in this space, because it's so exciting. It's Wild West, but I love the community, and there's this amazing feeling of camaraderie and wanting to help everybody, and just a very positive thing. And it's just nice to see so many people making money now. And, I've seen people pulled out of things that they can't even believe because of NFTs and what this space means to them. And this is not going away. It's probably one of the biggest things out there. So anyway, we've got shows. We're doing live events. And then we're tying into our live events, crypto minting. So we're minting real-time artwork during the shows. We're turning into NFTs, and again, we're streaming live into the metaverse. When we did Mammoth last week with our partners in.live and spatial.io, we went and we streamed directly into the conference into the metaverse, and we put up our galleries of all our NFTs. It was all in there. And people can check that out. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. So that's my whole thing, is building this business right now. I got 5 drops I'm working on, NFT drops. I got one, which is my series, which is called My Floyd Experience, which is all about my Pink Floyd experience. And I shot 150 hours of footage while I was out on the road in the last tours we did. And I'm creating really crazy art pieces out of this stuff with a twist. and got that going. And I'm also working with Arthur J. Williams, who's the incredible painter. He's got a very interesting story because he was known as the guy that actually counterfeited the $100 bill, and he counterfeited it, and he basically counterfeited $10 million, and it got him in jail. But went to jail. He came back out. Now he's considered one of the top painters. He's one of the kindest, hardest guy, helping the communities, doing stuff. So he said, like he said, going to prison for that was like, he definitely made me think a little different about life. But now he's a world-renowned painter, and I'm very, very excited. He's taking a lot of my content and stuff I'm making. We're collaborating, and he's painting and mashing all this stuff together. So we'll be having some releases and stuff that'll be coming out, a bunch of press releases starting at South by Southwest, and a whole series of artwork that we're working on with him. So, yeah, I'm excited about this space. I get up every day, eat, sleep, drink it, working pretty much, 14-hour, 15-hour days every day right now, and having more fun than I ever had. It's crazy.
I'm so glad that you explained the NFTs, because a lot of people are not sure what like the cryptos are. And I think that you giving it kind of like a breakdown helps all the ignorant, or I would call myself kind of ignorant to it too, because I honestly never got into it because I didn't understand it. But I think that you understand what they stand for and what it means and how valuable it is for you, and any business that you get involved with.
Right.
And I can see it as becoming more of kind of like an exchange on all ends of finance.
It is.
Maybe one day you'll get paid that as a paycheck, and you'll get it immediately.
Oh, well, I do, I go to a lot of these, what they call NFT drops. That's when somebody releases an NFT and mints one, what they call minting. And when that gets minted, then I go to these drops up in these, it's crazy. They're all over Beverly Hills. They do these things up in the things. And so some of the people said, "Oh, you're the musician guy, Pink Floyd. Will you come play our next drop?" I said, "Sure, I'd love to do that." And they said, "Well, how much do you want?" And I said, "I don't want dollars. I want to be paid in NFTs." So I'm already getting paid doing work in NFTs because NFTs represent, they're like valuable assets, and they go up in price. I mean, I've did some work where, the NFT started out and it was worth, a few $100s, and now it's worth thousands. Right. So I'd rather get
out of it. It grows.
Yeah. I much get paid. I try to get everybody to pay me in Ether or, in crypto and even NFTs than I do regular finance. So that's the first thing I say is, can you pay me in crypto? I would much rather be paid there than in U.S. dollars, especially with the inflation and the dollar dropping in value so much. Right. So this is a fundamental shift. This whole crypto world is really changing things, and it's going to be a rough ride. It goes up and it goes down, but at the end of the day, it's the people's movement, and that's what I think NFTs represent. This is the power to the people. It completely it filters out that middleman. It's like, if I wanted to send you $10,000 and you were in Europe, I'd go to my bank and say $10,000. You wouldn't probably get it for 3 days.
Right.
This, I can say, send you $10,000. I just go ching, 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 boom, and you got it in a matter of a minute or two. You're done. So it is just a whole new way people operate, the way things are going to be done in business. Now, saying that, there's also the power of it is so great, but at the same time, there's also a lot of dark side that can happen to it too. Because, when you can program something and, being able to kind of manipulate people's thinking or things that you can do with this stuff, it has to be guided. It's like anything. There's pros and cons to all of it. And so the upside is incredible for humanity. But you look at the metaverse and you think about people putting on headphones and never leaving their homes because they live in a little squalor in the middle of, Kentucky or someplace, and then they put their headphones on and they're living in a mansion in the south of France, and they're never going to want to leave. I'm going to stay in that world. And so there's a lot of stuff that needs to be figured out yet. And I think it's really up to us, the people that are in this right now, to help guide this in a positive space, right? That's our goal. That's my goal anyway.
I think it's amazing. I learned something I knew I was going to learn about you, Scott, but I learned something so I didn't expect to learn that. So I thank you for helping me to understand what you're talking about with that. Because honestly, I had I'm like one of those people, old fashioned, maybe. I don't know.
It's a little complex to understand, but once you do grasp it, your mind will spin. For me, it's the most creative space, because coming out of the early days of multimedia, when I did all the CD-ROMs and all of that, that's all interactivity. That's, what they say, if then else. If the person clicks on this, then this happens, right? And it's all that thinking through of entertainment. And so NFTs are interactive, they're programmable. So for me, it's just taking the last 30 years, and it's finally come to a place where I can use a lot of that concept and thinking that I was using and learning in those days. So it's a great space. So I urge everyone out there, anybody listening right now, you please go out there and just start using Google and YouTube. Start asking those questions. Just type in, what's an NFT? How do I create an NFT? If I'm in the music business, what are the top NFT music projects, and how to do an NFT music project? Just remember, you got all the education you need at your fingertips. And if you do, I guarantee you're going to see new revenue streams, ways to generate money like you've never seen before. And help us join the revolution to give back the power to the people. That's my model.
That's awesome, Scott. Thank you so much. Where can people get in touch with you?
My social is IAM Scott Page, SCOTTPAGE. You can Google Think Experience, Think EXP, and you'll find stuff on the band and stuff. And we're just getting ready to launch Think NFT, so that'll be all going live here pretty quick. That's the best way to get a hold of me. Just look at that on all the socials. IAM Scott Page.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for listening this evening. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Scott. That was awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was a blast.